Hi, everyone. Welcome to Got Something For Ya. Oh, Roy Jolly, thanks for joining our live chat. You loved how close the smaller group kept up in the challenge. I agree. I thought it was a really fun challenge to watch, and it got right down to that puzzle, so that was exciting. We'll talk about that today. Zons, welcome to the chat. Never considered that Mo would not try to get out of the bottom at all. I know. Is that based on Mo's tweet also last week? I think that's funny a lot. But we're going to get into it all today. Hey, Chris, welcome. Good to see you as always. I had a very interesting viewing experience of this episode because I went to Bryson Wen present for the very first time ever. It was so much fun. But then I have to admit, when I rewatched the episode to get prepared for today's stream, I had mixed feelings about the entire thing. I'm not going to lie. Hey, Georgette, good to see you. Thanks for joining the live chat. I mean, Ollie and Phil, can we start out with this question? Are you two tired of Mergatory yet?
Ollie, I'll let you start.
I don't know. I like the idea. I just feel like it needs some tweaking and updating. Like, that's where I stand on it. I don't mind it. I think the one issue I had was it was the exact same challenge as last season.
That's what I kind of felt like.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know?
That was like my big issue with it. But I'm still on the fence. Phil?
I think that a place where myself and probably the larger Survivor crew sort of agree and align on is that I love when survivors are surprised. I love when they are not necessarily able to expect what is coming. And I think that production likes that as well. Mergatory at the start was that. It was, hey, surprise, you thought you made merge, but the truth is you only made it, you are allowing yourself to compete for your merge. And that was fun. It was interesting at the very least. To your point, Ollie, I think that now it just feels like it's already pre-written and it's just a little bit more like strung out, which I am not the biggest fan of. I think about it and I go, okay, let's either get right there or let's spend time here, but let's make it like a little bit surprising. You know, what that means, what they need to add, I'm not quite sure. But I would love to have like an element of surprise during these mergatories. I would.
I agree. It does feel like it needs some tweaking now. Like we've gotten I like what you said, Phil. The castaways have sort of come to expect this now, and even all of us at the viewing party. Yeah, Chris, it was it was very strange watching this episode in that environment because I was telling Ollie before we started the live stream, it kind of felt like I got like the highlights of the episode, like Hunter finding the idol, the teams competing in the challenge, and then like who got voted out. But I kind of missed everything else, which is why it was interesting going back to rewatch it. But I agree with this point. Zans or Zons, let me know in the chat. It's kind of biased to give someone with strength and in after merge, so not a fair thing. I think I want to talk when we get to the challenge. I really want to bring up some points that some former players brought up on social media. Like Eliza had some ideas of how to tweak this. Stephen Fishback also sort of explained what he noticed was sort of maybe not the best thing about this sort of mergatory twist. So all very interesting, but let's definitely consider all of this as we get into today's episode. So I also have this question. Does it feel like we got to this point very fast? Because for some reason in this new era of Survivor, it feels like, and maybe it's with the 3-tribe division, it kind of feels like to me, like we get to Mergatory very quick. Or merge, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the entire game just moves so much quicker than it used to, right? And obviously, like, part of that is the fact that we used to be 39 days. We're now 26. I don't want to harp on that too much. I'm sure everyone has heard, you know, everyone's takes on that exists. However, I do think that, like, you know, just starting from there, right? I think that it is going to inherently feel like a longer, more drawn out season. I'm sorry, a shorter like sort of more fast-paced season. And yeah, it feels like you blink and you're already at Mergatory. And I think that's why when you get here, you know, the first person doesn't make jury. The first person doesn't even necessarily get a merge buff. Like, I guess that's why they do all these things, because yeah, they probably feel it too. We get here and it's like, dude, how are we already at, you know, this merge intersection? It feels so weird to talk about it because you can't call it merge, but you want to. But it's like, how are we already here? You know, it is strange.
Yeah, I feel like it is to do with kind of the free tribe format and the 26 days. Like, I'll harp on about it. I just feel like it does, because the thing is, this happened at day 12. So, like, almost halfway through their time. Mm-hmm. So, that in itself is then weird to think, oh, like, they're halfway through already almost. So, I feel like it's that thing. It's just, for me, it's a very weird, like, clank. It just all out of a sudden comes here. And I'm just like, okay.
It's funny. I kind of thought that Mariah was like in the perfect position going into this type of mergatory. Okay, mergatory is basically, the way I envision it, a tribe swap where they go down to two tribes, and the tribe that wins immunity also votes at tribal council. Like, that's how I sort of envision it. But like, I really thought Mariah was actually, of all the times to sort of be on the outs of a vote, I figured it was this because I thought that people were going to want to work with her. And to some extent, we did sort of kind of see that try to happen. But I think Mariah made some poor decisions in terms of strategy a little bit later on. But that being said, I do think that there were some larger targets here.
Yeah, I agree.
I just, sorry, a couple things. One, I think that a big reason why I think that it also feels like we get here so quickly is because we have two tribes that have virtually not seen tribal before this point at all.
That's right.
So by the time that we're here, we really only know, you know, Yanu dynamics more than you know, really. I mean, it's what it feels like all that we know. Obviously, we have seen Nami, we have seen Siga, you know, in little bits. But I think that's also sort of adding to this whole sort of vibe. And I want to talk to you too about the fact that it's interesting that you felt like Mariah was safe here, because I think that in the former sort of merge state, I think Mariah would be in a perfect place where, hey, she's on the bottom of her tribe, she's flexible, she's pliable, you can essentially absorb her into your group. But in this current sort of era, things are so different. And it's wild. I have to remind myself, it's no longer, oh, okay, the odd duck out has all the power. They can do the sort of, you know, Sarah Lacina, where she was able to sort of be like, I'm in the middle, you know, for what it's worth, she got voted off in that moment too. But I guess I want to see why you felt like Mariah was in a good place, because I actually felt the opposite. Seeing the former seasons of this new era, I go, yeah, it's so easy to call her out, you know, and that's sort of what Mergatory has become.
I think it's this weird thing now where, because normally that would be the case. We've seen it so many times. But I think how the mechanics of Mergatory works, it really does spotlight the people who are kind of the ones that could navigate and have options. And it kind of makes everyone else who wants to just bro out and be in a majority alliance go, oh, here's the odd one out. Oh, here's the easy vote. And I feel like that's why the dynamic's weird, because it almost does put a spotlight on those people that have the potential to have more agency.
Yes. Sorry, I was trying to think of my point too. I think what I just like imagined happening was, and I think we'll talk about it too, when Mariah sort of tried to describe what happened at the tribal council and flipped it a little bit there when she was speaking with Q. I just kind of assumed that like Ben, Tim, Maria, Charlie were sort of had more of a spotlight on them at this point, just because they were the deciding factors of the vote. They were the unanimous decision of the gem vote, which in my head means more power from them. Therefore, if I was on another tribe, kind of like what Venus did, kind of bringing Mariah onto her side or trying to, that's where I sort of thought that Mariah was. Also, to the point of it feeling fast, Chris says that Chris didn't really feel that it didn't feel fast to Chris at all because it was slow pre-merge. Yeah, I get that. I think the pacing of the first 5 episodes was kind of slow, especially because, to Phil's point too, only one tribe was really going to tribal council. It just did feel like at episode 6 in a pre-40 season, we wouldn't be at the merge stage.
No.
I actually it would feel weird if Anami won this season, like just because they haven't been to tribal council in the first, and it's not on them. It's just a part of the format of this season. But everyone arrives at the beach and we sort of get a repeat of what happened last year with Bruce and the idol thing. But this time it's Hunter who has to find the idol. And we get this. This was actually very fun to watch in the group setting. I enjoyed this.
I thought it was so funny to see him just start dashing down the beach. And Liz, I think it's Liz, she goes, "Why are we running?" And I just felt like that was so funny. And I actually thought that he was going to get caught because I was like, wow, like,
Same.
Immediately Liz, Liz is like, why are we running? And it almost felt like I would have questioned it more. I'd be like, where is he going? And for what it's worth, Venus did question more. Soda just did not want to pontificate. So that's on their dynamic, I guess. But
yeah.
I thought this was super fun. Yeah,
no, I agree. If I'd seen like Hunter just running off, I'd be like, where's he going? I'd be like, why? What's the point? And then I feel like, but it's because it's me, I would notice it and then kind of just clock what he's doing afterwards, because it would just feel a really weird thing just to run away. But this was a really funny moment, and it was just the juxtaposition of Hunter is here really trying to find this idol, and then in the background you have Venus.
Oh yeah, which honestly I thought was the more interesting part. Yes, we had to see Hunter find the idol, and I have to say, just going back to this real quick, I actually really like this fighting spot a lot. Like for the key, I thought this was clever because it was a public place that he had to be in for until he found it, so potentially long period of time with people interrupting him, and I just thought it was funny. But yes, this conversation was super interesting, and I kind of wanted to hear more about it.
Yeah, because I feel like we didn't get to. It was just it was almost like the editors were kind of making it a non-thing, which I guess looking back at the episode now, I kind of understand, because I feel like we saw Soda give Venus more time of the day than, say, like Tevin and Hunter and other people. But it was just really funny to see this dynamic between them two, because it's almost like bickering sisters. Like, to me, it was like it was just bickering sisters. Like, they love each other to pieces, and it's kind of just like, okay, yep, that's fine. Like, let's just be happy for merge, babe. But I love them, both of them, so I found it hilarious.
I wasn't feeling the love.
Yeah, I wasn't either.
I wish I felt more love. I was like, to me, it didn't seem like siblings. It felt like and I feel kind of bad because it's strange. It is the strangest dynamic to me. And it's very uncomfortable to watch to a certain extent. And I think that it really feels like old friends where one of them got super popular and has all these new friends that doesn't like their old original friend, and these two are still hanging out and like trying to stay friends, but the girl who sort of got popular, all her new friends don't really like Venus. That's like, it's a really weird dynamic, but it does not feel very love-filled. Rather love-filled. I feel bad for Venus a lot of times in these exchanges, and she's trying so hard to get anything out of Soda, and Soda is like leaving her dead at the door, which again, I don't know where this started. But yeah, real weird conversation, and it's like strange because I feel like Venus was like giving like good things to sort of think about, where she was like, "Hey, what do you think was up with Hunter over there? Like, what's your thought on that?" And and yeah, Soda was just like not feeling it. But again, I think that Soda probably feels like she probably thinks that Venus might be trying to trap her into something. So it's like I understand it, like a little bit, I guess. It's just it's hard to watch.
I'm with you, Phil, on this. I think with this conversation in particular, the whole Venus storyline has been very interesting to watch. I mean, Zans, as you point out here, like last week it was Venus trying to find an in with Hunter. This week it's trying to mend things with Soda. And actually, Venus was at the watch party, and this was I've never had this experience of watching an episode of Survivor with a current castaway who is on the season at the same time watching herself on the show. I was like, this blew my mind. But it was I actually didn't catch this part because, again, busy setting until I did the rewatch. And I just feel like we missed something about Venus's gameplay or strategy that sort of caused this from Soda, Hunter, Tevin. Basically, the reason I'm looking for the reason why Venus is on the bottom of her tribe. Yeah, this is an iconic quote. So I got to talk to Venus at the watch party. I asked for her to give a shout out to Ollie, and that was her response. And it was all in good fun. I love it's honestly one of my favorite videos that I have.
I have it.
Good.
I watch it before I go to sleep.
Yeah. You know what? Anything for you, Ollie. But I thought that it was interesting to see this conversation, and then not only that, but then what other tribes started to think about Venus as the episode went on. Again, I thought this was Venus's moment to find an alliance, and kind of like what I was saying with Mariah before.
I will say, when it comes to Venus, I was also hopeful. I thought that she was going to walk into this merge. People were going to really take to her, and it was simply just like a mismatch of personalities. Oh, she didn't get along on Nami, but surely, it's just those people there. She'll be able to make more friends elsewhere, especially when there's this whole new plot of folk. Yeah, it did not go the way that I thought that it was, and it's kind of a shame because honestly, like, I will be honest, out of all the people on this season, I think Venus is probably top 5 of people that I would feel like I would just naturally get along with. She has a really great energy. She seems like a hard game player, someone that I would want to play with. But these people are just not biting. They are not really digging Venus.
And I will say, I think it's important to also note that even though Venus is the one kind of going through this, and Phil, to your point, this wasn't a fun conversation to watch, nor has like some of the other conversations we've seen about Venus or Venus has been a part of. Venus is still saying, hey, everyone, please don't send hate to my castmates. And I think that is like, I want to nail that in right here. I want to remind us all of that at the end as well. I mean, all of our viewers, like you guys have been incredible, but I think it's just a good reminder for the Survivor fan population in general, right? Like, let's take a cue from Venus here. So everyone shows up at the beach. It's all fun. We do the thing. That's amazing. And we get a reminder, Tiffany's got an idol.
Idolicia.
In her bra.
Idolicia, baby. She's in the game.
Yeah. I love this. I forget, was there anything else like here specifically, or was she just reminding us about the idol?
Yeah, she was just reminding us about the idol and how she's so happy to get away from the idol. Which, fair enough. But yeah, I appreciate they put this in because I still stand Tiffany, and I'm ready for her to come and slay the game.
Honestly, same.
Yeah.
I am like really, I mean, look, at the end of the day, this is our merge episode. I feel like we should start talking about prospects here. I think Tiffany has like a really great journey ahead of her. And I am happy too, Ollie. The second she reminded us about this idol and she goes, oh, this is going to help us out on the merge tribe. I was like, this is really interesting. Like, I want to see, how this is actually going to come into play. Is it going to be a successful idol play? I really hope so. And I mean, what do we think? Do we think that Tiff, Q, and Kinsey are along for the game? Do you think that they're going to be sticking together here? It seems like I was happy to see them all sort of end up on the safe tribe. Looked good.
Well, the storyline.
I'm just curious to know what Ollie's thinking here. Not look promising.
Look, what was the Yanu storyline before Siga went to tribal council? It was the fact that Tiffany was sort of in the middle of Q and of Kenzie. So I think that will come back into play at a certain point. I just don't know how soon. And I do want to agree. I didn't get to say this on one of the episodes that I missed, but Tiffany is like, we talked about Venus sort of being in a lot of our top fives for this season. Tiffany's up there for me as well. I especially appreciated seeing like her interactions with Banu when Banu was in the game. Like, I like seeing Tiffany sort of navigate the social dynamics and the strategic dynamics of the game. But Ollie, to you about Phil's point.
That's all I need to say.
I love the reactions, Ollie.
Yeah, I feel like two of them are going to do decent, but I feel like there is one person that is putting the blinders on his face. So that's where I stand on it.
Let's talk about Q. Like, let's bring Q into this conversation, because there's something to be said about Q was sort of able to drive the vote, right? Like at the end of the day, with help, right? Like, I don't think he was alone in this. But the thing is I kept thinking, like, is this really the right strategy right now?
No.
Okay, cool. Like, I also thought, wait, do we have it? So, like, this is where he's like, hey, did Tim tell you about the alliance? And Maria was like, huh? Like, what? I'm actually very happy that Maria was also as confused by this as I was last week, because I was like, that's so random. But I think, like, Q started voicing that Tim could possibly be a liability, and I was like, hey, maybe there's something there to that strategy, right? But it didn't seem to go anywhere past this point.
I think it's because Q has a very he is very much, this is how I want to do it. And I think my big issue with Q is I can tell he's trying to control. He's trying to be, he's very much a leader. And that's the word I'm going to use. I'm not going to use the others. But he's a leader. And he needs to be the one that takes the action. And again, we kind of saw it earlier with Banu in the season. If the people that he's choosing, and that's the term, the people he's choosing to be aligned with isn't doing what he wants 100%, it's almost like, okay, what's going on then? He's just trying to keep his soldiers in line.
Yeah, Q's a really interesting player. I absolutely do agree with you there. I think that he is like, and truly, I mean, like, this is a compliment. I think that Q has like huge leadership qualities. But to your point, Ollie, like, there is a level of needing to be in an authoritative sort of spot of any sort of group that can sort of hinder you from being able to match up with groups. Because if you need to be in a sort of leader seat or an authoritative seat of any collective of people, it's only going to limit the amount of people that you can allow yourself to be with, right?
Yep.
And to your point, in this sort of setting, look, I'll be honest, I sort of get what Q's saying, where he goes to Maria and he's like, so, like, you've heard, like, you know what we're doing, right? And she's looking at him going, what are you talking about? Like, that would give me pause too. Like, I get it. And for what it's worth, Q and Tim are like this as players. I mean, you have heard Tim numerous times in this episode say, look, man, I'm just trying to go where the numbers are. I don't want to shake things up too much. I want to keep it cool, unanimous, whatever. I don't think Q's trying to do that. I think Q has almost an entirely different ethos about the game, where he's just like, I want to go where I am most set up to win. I think that's where he wants to sit, but I do think he has a disillusion about where that spot might be, because I do think that he is. I think this was a great episode for him, but I don't think he can do this for an entire season. I don't.
I 100% agree with your points, Phil, because the thing that I'm like, I'm having this conflict with is that I like that Q is playing how he thinks he needs to in order to get, and I can't say that for everyone that I've been seeing in these episodes. Maybe that's because they've been left out of the edit, which is possible, or just the fact that they're just going with the flow and that's their strategy. I like that Q is at least steering. I just thought that it was really interesting, like that Tim didn't become like a bigger target this episode, or I felt, and maybe it's because Q probably felt like we already and this is again before the Mergatory challenge, but like it was interesting that I lost. Sorry, Chris. Your comment made me lose my train of thought. Q reminds me of George. King George? I'm going to need you to elaborate on this point, Chris. And then Zanz, you said that I see him trying to play a Boston Rob, but does not have the strategic control. That's very interesting.
Yeah, I would actually even go as far as to say this, because I really do think this is true. Mo, right? Mo, and I'm getting a little ahead here, so apologies, but Mo revealed at Tribal Council all these things of her being on the bottom, whatever. And I actually do understand why she didn't sort of put all that out there at the start.
Yeah.
You don't want to seem like the person who was just, hey, I'm dead in the water already. Please save me. Please save me. You know, you want to at least seem like you have some sort of power on the tribe that you're coming from. However, I actually think that with Q, I think that if Mo went up to him at the start of this merge and said, Q, to his point, right?
Yeah.
He said, I asked you where you were in your tribe. You said you were good. You should have told me you needed help. And that's the thing. I think that it is actually within Q, to your point, Chris, yes, he is a Boston Rob, Vance, he is a Boston Rob type in his mind, where he wants people to come to him broken, down on their luck, at the bottom of their tribe, and he wants to be the one to grab them from that place, yank them up, and say, hey, you're safe with me. And right here, this is the conversation. I mean, and I think that it's just really, really interesting that he said that at Tribal. He said, look, you should have told me you needed help. You should have told me you're at the bottom, because I think that for a Q, that incentivizes him to work with you. Whereas a lot of others would be like, oh, you don't have any power on your tribe? Well, I don't want anything to do with you. I want to grab people that have power. I don't think Q is interested in grabbing people that have power. He's interested in grabbing people that he can control and that he can sort of dictate. And for what it's worth, that's solid strategy if you can do it. And I just don't know that we have a long track record of him doing that. But with Jess was sort of down on her luck. She needed someone. Q was there for him, or for her, you know. But then he voted her right out. Not really smart of him. Bonu was down on his luck. Q was there for him, and then he voted them right out. So same thing. Like, we have not seen him be able to grab someone like this and carry them through. But I think that he wants to in his mind, you know.
I was just reading Frank's read.
Same.
Frank did have a read. That is a read and a half.
That is a read. Wait, go ahead. Someone click it if you want. There you go. Yeah, Frank, you won the reading challenge today. The library is
congratulations.
Let's get into the thing that Mergatory. That's what we're here to talk about. Wait, real quick, I missed it. What is? No, I'll change it after I have my lights. But what is the merge buff? I missed it.
Red.
It's like like this really nice red color.
It's a red, and what's his name? Mr. Ben called it Shred Red. There we go. I mean,
Shred Red.
What better of a name?
That's good. Is that it? Cool. All right. Enough.
It's enough there.
That's red.
Let's talk about these divisions, though. So they do a random rock draw. I would like them to figure out a new way of doing this.
Yes.
If they're going to continue with Mergatory in the future.
Yeah. I think it's one of those, and I think because me and you were talking about this, Eliza from Vanuatu and Fans vs. Favorites, she posted about a suggestion, and I think it's a really good suggestion of having this done as a schoolyard pick.
Yeah.
Because again, it takes away any chance of there being a unbalance, which, as much as we think like, oh yeah, you've got all these young guys over there, whatever. Like, I think both tribes held their own first and foremost, but I understand it is the thing of, because it will look a certain way in society. The best thing I think is the schoolyard pick. Because then it does leave the person that really truly didn't get picked to have some sort of power, and I think that's where that's where I'd enjoy it more. And then obviously we do have one tribe which Kenzie clearly carried, but that's just me.
I think I mean, I really liked Eliza's idea here as well, and I agree with it because I'm not even thinking about in terms of the actual physical need demands of the challenge itself. I'm also thinking about just like after the fact, like who is more likely to go home after when one of these tribes is safe from the vote and the other is not. You know, like I just think if we could figure out a way to mix up the tribes a little bit more in this case in terms of gender dynamics, like I think that it would offer up a more interesting tribal council, in my opinion.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Absolutely.
But we do this, and you know what? It was a fun challenge, and this was also another thing that was kind of awesome to be in the Bryce and Wen present a watch party for, because it was just so exciting getting to see it. And of course, it was also nice because, you know, like Heidi was there, Jam was there, Bryce and Wendell, of course. But it was like so cool because, you know, at least for anyone who's been in the new era survivors, like, you know that they've stood there before, like, you know that they've been here, and it was kind of cool seeing them do this as well. I would like to do this one day. I think it looked like a lot of fun, except for sliding down the other side of this thing, seeing everyone bounce down the net. I was like, that's painful.
Oh, see, I was like, no, I'm good for the mud part. I was like, I don't need the mud. But that's just me being in my princess era. I don't need the mud. But yeah, I mean, we all know I love challenges. So the one thing I want to say though about this challenge, I liked what Jeff did about the end, about the puzzle. I appreciated that part because it was such a small thing. Also, this moment. Sorry,
I mean,
yeah. I mean, we'll talk about this moment first before I go to the puzzle. I love this so much because that was true teamwork. And I just saw it and I was like, yes, go on Orange Tribe. Like, I was here for it.
Yeah, it did make me smile.
I think you're sort of leading there, Ollie, but I also really like what they did with the puzzle, where they sort of forced everyone to do a certain portion of it. So it's not just, hey, get your 2 smartest members or your 1 member of your tribe that has built all these challenges at home and have them speed through it. Yeah. Instead, it's, hey, everyone's got to do a portion. You know, like there's no hiding on Survivor. You know, I think that's like I thought that was really, really smart choice.
Yeah, and I think as well what it does actually encapsulate is what they wanted to try and do, which was every single person on the tribe has somehow in a way earned their way into the merge now, because each of them did part of the puzzle. So they have all now earned their spot. To me, anyway.
I like that, Ollie. This was at one of those moments where when I was at the watch party, I didn't hear the instruction that everyone had to do a section. So I was just like, why are they switching out? They're doing great. I was like, why do they need to do that? But then I realized, oh wait, I want to see, Frank, I like your suggestion here. And maybe another way of splitting up the tribes is doing like the chain pick, where like the next person who gets picked picks the next person, sort of doing it that way. I think that's a fun thing that we haven't seen in a while. And that's funny about what the yoga pose, what this would be called if it was a yoga pose. I think that's funny. Georgette, I was wondering this too. I wondered how close it was in real time, not edited time, because there were some instances where, like, we saw the purple team, we saw their puzzle like go from 0 to one of the sections going from 0 to 100, and then the other team was climbing up. So I was wondering how long it actually took them to get up there. But that being said, we did see that both tribes ended up working on the puzzle and that it did look close by the end of it.
I was going to say, I think that, like, you know, obviously they can always do finicky little editing tricks, but I think that for this one especially, you were able to see them both in that final section at the same time, which leads me to believe that it was at the very least pretty close. You know, not you know, I mean, I love the show, but Traitors, where every single challenge is like a last final 3 seconds. And I'm like, this is not real. I love the show. The whole concept of this is fantastic, but there is a 0% chance that these are all, nail biters. But yes, this seemed like it was actually close.
Yeah, and we're talking about the U.S. version of Traitors. I'm not sure how it's like.
No, it's the same.
Is it the
It's
same?
the same.
It's
Oh,
all
bad.
Sorry for that. It's the same shit.
it is.
All right. Well, they purple team ends up winning here, so they earn the merge. They get to go to their fancy feast. I want to take a very quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about all of the post immunity challenge strategy that happens.
Yep.
Okay.
My name is Jonah Fielko, and I'm the CEO of Bracketology.tv, fantasy sports for reality television. We offer fantasy games for shows like The Bachelor, Survivor, Big Brother, RuPaul's Drag Race, and counting. You start by creating a community. Within your community, you can create a fantasy league for each show that you want to play fantasy games for. Within the league, you can choose up to 3 of our 4 game types, and our most popular is the Advanced League. Choose a team of contestants, and depending on what they do and say during the episode, that's how your team will gain or lose points each week. We also have elimination-style games like our Confidence Pool. This is where you choose how confident you are that each contestant will survive elimination that week. And we've also got March Madness-style brackets. Come back a couple hours after the episode to check your scores and watch you climb the leaderboard. Bracketology is free to play, so grab your friends, your family, your coworkers, and head to bracketology.tv for more info.
I'm trying to find like a better red. I mean, it's sunny out, so you can't even really see the color behind me, but I'll find it eventually. So here's the merge, half of the merge tribe at this point. They're enjoying their meals, and like, who were the options at this point? Because I feel like it quickly got to Venus and Mo.
Yeah, it was Venus and Mo, but this is where I feel like Tim really blundered. And I know we were talking about how both of them had, like, both Tim and Q had different things. I feel like this is where Tim kind of really showed his cards, because he really wasn't giving a name. Like, he was kind of just sat there like, I ain't saying. Okay, well, Mariah, she wasn't technically the one in the vote. But then he was still kind of there going, no, I want Venus to go first. And then you guys can, it wasn't what he said. It was how he was saying it that kind of just made it very bluntly obvious that he was going to stick Seeger strong. And I feel like that's where my kind of issue with Tim this episode was. I understand he wanted to have options, but he was also, he was wanting to have all the options, but also dictate what was going on. And kind of almost, he was trying to be sneaky about it, but in a really non-sneaky way. And this was another example of it, which I kind of just was very confused by during the episode. I don't know if you two feel the same.
I do, because I think with Tim, what I noticed about his edit in this episode in particular, also, we didn't really touch upon it with the not telling Maria about the Alliance of Six thing, but he said in a confessional, like, I wanted Maria to come to that conclusion. And I'm like, okay, you know what? Like, there's something to be said about that strategy in Survivor, which is great. Ollie, I'll get to you in 1 second. But the thing that I was like, is that really the type of, like, so you were waiting for Maria to figure out that there was going to be an Alliance of Six and then have her make the decision to join it? Like, I lost the thread there a little bit in terms of that strategy. Like, again, I think there's something to be said about in Survivor making someone feel like it was their plan all along. But I was like, is this really the moment to do that type of strategy?
So, just talking about that moment, I figured out quite quickly what he was wanting to do. And looking back, I feel like this is actually what he's been doing most of the season. He wanted to find out Maria's opinion, because then if Maria turned around and said, I don't want to be in that alliance, he can pin it on Maria and just be like, sorry, she didn't want to do it, so I'm not doing it, and put the blame on other people. He is very much, he wants to snipe from the shadows. And he wants to, that when he does it, he wants to be like, oh, well, this is the, like, he always wants to have someone there to be like, this is the reason. And it's almost like he doesn't want to take accountability. There is always someone else to blame for it, if that makes sense, in that moment.
That's interesting. That's interesting. It's not what it makes. It actually makes a lot more sense than what I got initially from it. So I don't mind that strategy, to be completely honest. I just think he's not as slick with it.
Yes.
So with that, we then go into our we see our tribe who is at risk. So okay. Out of this group here, I feel like it would have been a great move to get out Charlie or Maria. Like, I think no one really knows that. I feel like people should know at this point that they were sort of right, because the gem vote, they very much were in the middle of that. So I feel like Mariah should know that. Mariah made some mistakes.
Yes.
I will say Mariah talked about it in her exit interview a little bit. She said that she knew that Charlie and Maria were close, but she did not know at all how close they were. She thought that the main connection was Charlie and Ben. So it's a blind spot for sure. I do think that if they got either Charlie or Maria out, I think that probably for like everyone else in the game, it would have been a good move, considering I think that these are two people that are like in very, very good positions in the game. But unfortunately, in these sort of this new era mergatory, it's doesn't really work like that too often. It's a lot of times just like, hey, who are sort of the first consensus names that we can come to, and it happened pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I think I think that reason was because obviously, like, basically Nami and Sega were like, right, who are you willing to give up? And the two people were Venus and Mo. So it was kind of like, right, if this side has offered this person, this side has offered this person, like that is basically like 2/3 of the tribe that have just gone, yeah, cool. But I understand. I think Charlie would have been a really smart choice to go for because he was well insulated in Sega. And I think he was the person that was almost the glue.
Stephen Fishback posted something about Mergatory. Like it's a criticism of Mergatory and the system. And I agree with this, where there is an entire team of castaways that is able to vote here that all they have to do is not ruffle any feathers. It wouldn't be smart for them to make any big waves in this position. So like that's the whole point. When they won their way into the merge, they won immunity. They're still able to vote. It makes sense that they just kind of go with like the easiest name or the safest option here, but that doesn't necessarily make for like great TV. Yeah. And in fact, like we'll get into it, like it was kind of hard to watch a little bit, right? So like, Tiffany admits to Venus, like it's either you or it's Mo. And Venus obviously is like, why? Like why is that the case? And pitches Charlie, right? That's what happens. But it paints this target on Venus because she's upset that it's either going to be between her and Mo. It instantly paints her as a bigger target.
It's one of those, like, both of them at this point are non-threats in the sense of they don't have a lot of agency. And I think Venus, like in my opinion, we've seen this episode that Venus is really smart and Venus is very observant. And she said it first, and she even said it to Q, that why not go for Charlie when Mo is a non-threat? And even kind of state it, like she was given the reason. So like I understood it. And yeah, like I know when she was speaking to Soda and Kenzie at this point, like kind of mentioning like all the guys went on the feast together, like, but then she also made the point of saying the 3 Sega guys have been keeping each other safe, and that's what she's heard. So she wasn't just saying I want to vote out a guy. She was giving reasons, of kind of saying like, look, the 3 guys are sticking together. And if we've not noticed, the guys are always buddying together. So what is the point in also keeping the guys if they're clearly going to try and bro out together? So I understood Venus's reasoning. It's just at that moment in the game, no one kind of took her seriously. Like no one really wanted to hear her opinion, which is sad, because I think if people kind of sat there for a moment and listened and took away, like, just if they kind of just focused on the fundamentals of Charlie is tight with the three guys. Clearly, he is well insulated in Sega. He is a smarter move. Then it could have gained traction, but unfortunately, because of how they've already perceived Venus, they're not gonna listen to it.
Yeah, I think it's partially perception of Venus, but I also think that it is just like, again, and I feel I don't want to feel like a broken record here, but truly I think that like Mergatory is the merge is forever changed. Like this moment of the game is forever changed. We like need to stop thinking about it like it's the same merge that we saw even 5 years ago. It's not, and I think that like for people who are, and it's interesting because this is exactly the logic that sort of Q was saying at a certain point where it's like, and I've heard Stephen Fishback talk about this as well. And again, it is a bit of a flaw in the game, but it's like, if you are not in that safe pocket of this new Mergatory, you don't get to make a decision.
Yeah.
Your job is to protect yourself. If you have the nerve to even try to make a decision, it's almost insulting to that like other gang of winners that are safe. And again, am I saying that's how it should be? No. Am I saying that's how it is and how it's grown to be? Kind of, yeah. And I think that like truly, this was less about how Venus was perceived, and it was more, well, what's wrong with you, dude? Like, we're not safe. We can't be throwing out names. And I think that literally her sitting with the women who were all also not safe, and she's going, ladies, let's just stick together. Like, we should be pushing Charlie. And they're all like, oh man, you really shouldn't be talking about this. Like, it really does feel like your buddy's sort of like, poking you in class, trying to pass you a note, and you're like, no, I don't want to get in trouble. Get away from me. And I think that that's what's happening with Venus, where Venus is coming up to people being like, hey, there is this option C. Look over here. And everyone else is like, literally, like, they're just like, don't involve me. I don't want to get in trouble, literally. And I think, like, to sort of go back to what you were talking about before, I think that I actually kind of disagree with you about the Tim thing, too, where I actually think you're giving Tim a little bit more credit, but I think that Tim is just a really passive player. I don't think that as much of what you're saying is going on this is with love to Tim. Like, Tim is on my fantasy draft. I love Tim, but I do think that I saw Tim as a little bit more of an active thinker in the preseason than I'm seeing in the actual game. He's not active, dude. He's a very passive player. To think that he is making these moves and then I don't want to be to blame, whatever. I think that he is just going the smoothest route that doesn't have a current against him. And I think that even him bringing this up to Maria is a way that there could be, contention. There could be a disagreement, whatever. And he's just like, hey, I'm just going to wait for you to figure it out yourself. I'm going to let you meet Q, see how you like him, have you come up to me and say, hey, I like Q, and then I'll let you in on everything. I think he's just being very passive. And I think that it's a shame that like players are not able to be more active at this point in the game, because this used to be one of the most active points in the game.
Yeah.
And it is now one of the least active points of the game because everyone is scared. And like, I get it. If I'm out there too, if I just lost, I'm not going to be a Venus. I'm going to be a Maria. I'm going to be a Soda where I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool that you have all these really awesome and mighty plans. Like, I'm just going to sit here and hope that I'm safe. Like, truly. And it's a shame, but I do think that is sort of what we're seeing a little bit,
I think Frank agrees with you here, saying that this cast has not voted out anyone that is a threat. So Venus pushing big targets isn't being received well at this point. Everyone is playing a scared game.
Absolutely, Frank. I think everyone is playing a scared game. I absolutely agree. But again, I think it's a product of sort of the format. It's a product of where the game is at. Like, it's really no punching at our players here. Once again, I just said it. I would be doing the same thing. And I think
it's definitely a format issue. Like, they're to your point, to what Steven said, like I don't like it, I'll just say it. I don't really like that we get to this point. And this feels like what's so special about Survivor that I love about it is that unlike games like Big Brother, where there's like a set 2 people that can go that week, anyone is at risk for going, anyone. And all it takes is some social strategy here, some strategic planning here to flip everything on its head. And I feel like that was really lacking in this episode, which, to your point, Phil, I wish felt a little bit more exciting in terms of who's going to go. But also, I will just say, even like I said, with when Yanu was going to back-to-back tribals, each time it felt more and more obvious who was going to go home, and it's less exciting from a viewer's perspective. But I also want to be clear about this point that Phil mentioned. It is not the castaways' faults entirely. Like it is it is the format of the game as it is at this moment.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. I mean, truly, I'm able to sit as a viewer and go, wow, yeah, like Venus bringing up Charlie, you know, that would have been a viable plan. But I'm also able to like project myself out there and realize if Venus came up to me talking all that mess, I'd be like, this is crazy. We're not safe. We need to hide and shelter. Like, and it's a shame that that's the vibe, but it really feels like the vibe, you know?
Yeah. I mean,
like, let me make it to the next vote where maybe I can get something going.
Well, no, I think it's a shame because you could see her doing that next episode. You could see her doing that when, like, if this was just one person having immunity, there'd be no issues. And it's because you've got this one side that are all safe and then almost feel like they can dictate what's going on. And I think that's where I take the big issue with it, because it's like, I like, to me, if I was kind of sat there and I heard someone like Q sit there and go, how dare you? How you do this? And I'd be like, I'm not playing your game. I'm playing my game.
Ollie,
so,
let me tell you how we fix this, okay?
Yeah.
We get a giant hourglass. And we send them off to an island, and we say, "Hey, if you break the hourglass, these people in power will lose power." I think it's brilliant. I
love it.
That's all we need is an hourglass. Come on.
I love it.
I'm looking for Chris's comment because he actually did he do this to either of you too?
No.
He tricked me on April Fool's Day and made me think that hourglass was coming back for this episode, and honestly, it wouldn't have surprised me. Even though Jeff has said it's never coming back, I still was like, it's possible. I think we should talk about Aubrey. And is it... Does being a fan of Aubrey automatically equate to being a threat to win the game?
No, Q.
I think, but this is the thing, and this is just like, it's interesting. I heard Stephen Fishak make this very similar argument here. You can never guarantee how someone sees another player. It's just what it is. I know people that think Tony is a moron to this day, despite him winning twice. And people are like, he stumbled his way to the finish line both times. It's true. A lot of people think that. I, on the other hand, I loved his active play. If someone looks at me and tells me, oh, I'm like a Tony, it's going to come across to me very differently than someone else who thought he was just some wackadoodle. You know, you just never know how people are going to perceive your person. And I think it's really, really interesting that, like, yeah, something as, you know, innocuous as Mo saying, hey, I really like Aubrey, which is like such a, it's honestly kind of a vanilla take, if I'm being completely honest. Like, it's not even some deep cut, whatever. Like, I think most people like Aubrey. I mean, Aubrey was a great character on the show, a great contestant, a good person. But I do think it's wild. Yeah, Q saw that, was like, oh, it's the brains. You know what? It's just interesting. You know, I do think that it is like another part of what makes the game interesting. You know, but I did think it was very funny because yes, I don't look at Aubrey as some scary figure. You know what I mean? But Q definitely did.
Well, Ollie, before you go, I think Aubrey also had like a very clear character arc and journey that I think is also very endearing to Aubrey and her story. So like, it wasn't, I didn't get the sense that Mariah was being like, I am playing like Aubrey. I was getting the sense of, he asked, who's your favorite castaway? And she was like, oh, I like Aubrey. You know, like Banu's favorite castaway was Spencer, you know? So it's just like, it doesn't always equal.
But also, I swear she mentioned when Q asked this question, and by the way, Q gave her nothing, and he was expecting her to give him everything, which first of all annoyed me. But also, she mentioned she liked Aubrey due to the fact that she can relate to how she was as a person, and the fact that, you know, she is this kind of like quirky girl that no one really gets. And like, she was like, I was endeared to her because she's how I see myself in real life. And then Q took that and spun it. To me, that's what it came across. Like, Q took that. Oh, you like Aubrey? I'm not going to listen to all the other things. You like Aubrey. You are Aubrey. You play like Aubrey. Fret. And it was like, well, no, if you'd actually listened to her, you would have heard her say, like, as a person, I'm endeared to her. Like, we share a lot of similarities, like, as a person. And that's where it sort of irritated me, because it was like, bro off.
You know what I wonder? I wonder if Q had already, maybe not shown in the episode. So like, it's a hypothesis here. I wonder if he already knew that Mariah had lied to him about her standing in the tribe and about her being on the correct side of the gem vote. Because it came up at the end again, but I just can't imagine that the other castaways that Q was forming relationships with from Sega wouldn't have said, yeah, Mariah wasn't on the right side of the vote. Like, you know?
Well, for what it's worth, we did see on 2 occasions that exact thing happen.
Oh.
We see Ben say that the vote was unanimous, and we see Tim say the vote was unanimous, and we see Mo say the vote was unanimous. They talked about it.
They all lied. They all lied until the feast. It wasn't until the feast that Tim actually said, I'm gonna say it, Mo, because she actually wasn't on the right side of the vote. That was the first time it had been mentioned.
This is why I
from
have
what
to
we
take
saw.
notes
From what we saw
during the episodes.
What, Matt? That must have been some party. Yeah.
He was loving his life. He was getting videos.
Let me tell you, I was watching. I was in a
yeah.
corner next to a jukebox, and I had a pillar in my way of the screen that had like the screen I was looking at did not have closed captions. So I was fighting for my life in there, trying to figure out the episode, while also, again, like everyone would like turn to look at for Venus's reactions to things throughout the episode. So it was just a very interesting and cool experience. But yeah, missed that. So that's interesting. I guess it was just to, you know, be Sega strong. But I wish Mariah, I wish she didn't fall for that. You know, like, I don't know, maybe I'm sure she was in agreement that this is the best way to move forward, and that's her choice. But I wish that she had been more open to making connections and not starting out on a lie.
I think had she mentioned it during this pre-tribal part, there potentially, I'm not saying it would have, there could have been a chance it could have had more impact. I think the perfect time to have mentioned it was either the day of, like, just before immunity, or the pre-tribal period. I think that would have been the best time for her to say it. And then she could have even said, the reason I didn't say it earlier was because the tribe had agreed to stay strong. I now know that we're not staying strong, so why should I have to keep this act up?
Right.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Just the idea of like, hey, let's tell everyone that it was unanimous so that we seem like the strongest tribe out here. But ultimately, I think it's a big reason why they went over Venus, because they said themselves, they were like, okay, Nami threw out Venus in 0 seconds. Versus Sega, we had to beg them to throw out a name, and they like begrudgingly gave us Mo. You know what I mean? It just, for the masses that are not on Sega, it makes sense to go after Mo, because you're like, you're going, well, y'all are really close, allegedly. Why would I not get out the tribe that's close versus the one where, like, yeah, you guys, you know, Nami, they don't give a crap about Venus. Like, we'll keep her in the game. We can take her from Nami, frankly. You know, Mo seemed like, okay, this is just a hurdle in the game for me, you know, for, I guess, for Q, for Tem, for anyone over there. It's a hurdle in their game, and it's not something that they can sort of extract.
I mean, at this point, right, like, right before we go to tribal council, it sort of seems like it could possibly be Venus, right? Like, it sort of seems like it switched back because, like we said before, Venus found out it was between her and Mo, pitched Charlie, and because of that, it was like, well, I guess we got to go for Venus now. So what happened here? Like, what happened with Mariah? Because obviously now, also knowing, like, her tribe has no reason to, Siga has no reason to keep her, because she
Yeah.
also, says here, no, it was not unanimous. I voted with Jem. So like, I didn't understand this. Someone else take over.
No, I do truly think that her mentioning it at Tribal and Q being the one to kind of push back on her, and this is one of the only few times this episode I appreciated what Q said, because I think there was merit to it. But I think that moment was where kind of Mariah had the final nail in the coffin, because she kind of then almost gave old Sega a reason to kind of side with everyone else.
I feel like they had to at that point too, because they had been lying to everyone. They had been saying we voted unanimous. We voted unanimous. Now Mariah comes in and says it was not, in fact, unanimous. So now their hands are tied. Like they kind of have to prove their trust and kind of go in with that direction.
Yeah, I like that it was a little like misleading, because even at Tribal I thought that it could have been Venus, and it's not always like that. So but yeah, everyone on Mo except for one vote on Venus from Charlie, which is which seems to be like a safety precaution sort of deal. But I found it to be like really, really interesting. I just think in general, like, this Tribal Council was interesting. I mean, just hearing, sort of getting like Venus being, hey, Venus, has your name been called out? And she's like, oh yeah, a bunch. Charlie admitting that he's heard whispers. Like, it was sort of like we as the audience were sort of piecing together where they were at. It was very clear that we, they did not let us in on a few conversations before this.
Yeah. I was nervous that it was, because Venus was at the watch party, so I was so scared that was her night. Wendell at one point was like, "Who do you think is going?" And I was like, "I swear, if it's Venus, I am out of here." Like, I didn't want the potential for the spoiler. I think it was actually very, very cool that it was a little misleading, actually having her there and knowing she was also like very much at risk in this moment. So it did make it, again, very exciting to watch it with the group, but it was kind of like it was up until Mariah mentioned like it was not in fact unanimous. I didn't really know who it was going to lean towards at the start of it.
Same.
But it was Mariah, and this was I felt bad because Venus was there, so everyone was cheering for the fact that it was not Venus, but it was kind of in a way cheering because Mariah had been voted out, and I was like, I don't think Mariah deserved that, but that's what happened.
It's interesting. I'll be honest. I thought that the claps were like endearing, like we love you, Mo, whatever. I mean, they were literally cheering for her as they were clapping.
I meant like in the party, not on the
Cool. I thought you meant on here. I was like, it's interesting that you read it like that. I was like, they were like cheering Mo Shetty. Like that makes more sense.
Yeah. I already missed one thing about the edit, which was Siga saying they were going to be unanimous. I can't miss another thing. So Mariah, I wanted to see her go a little bit further. But and that it happened. That's what it is. We there's no turning back now.
I love you, Mariah. I loved Mariah.
I wanted to see more Mariah and Liz personally.
Yeah,
I was really fixing to see that in this post merge. But hey, I think she did a good job.
Yeah. There was only one tiny thing though with Mariah going. There was only the tiniest good thing that came out of it.
What?
I'm the last person with a full team on the draft.
Oh.
Okay. Yay!
Go women!
But we have a double elimination happening next episode. So, Ollie, we'll see what happens with that. Okay, but congratulations, Ollie. That is cool that you still have, but I think Will is still technically beating you points-wise. Anyway, let's move on to the tribe has posted. Ollie, take us through some of these tweets from the castaways.
Yeah, so, I mean, to be fair, I will say this episode was really fun for kind of tweets. I feel like we really did. The first couple of tweets I found were just people mentioning about the merge, and it was kind of Kenzie kind of being really happy that she's made the merge, knowing that she is a super fan. Like, I think like that moment really was nice to see. Same with Tevin. Like, I like the fact that we saw people on social media give that moment its moment, because I feel like a lot of times people have kind of moved past it, but it's like, you guys have made the merge. So I like the fact that both of these guys acknowledged it and gave it its flowers, in the sense of like they've made an achievement no matter what when it comes to the show. Like they can say that they made it to the merge, which is a very cute thing. Plus I just really liked Kenzie's photo. I just thought it was really funny.
Would you two be as excited about merge? Because I think I have a different take on this, which is the fact that if I get voted out and I go to the jury, like, I don't want the pressure of voting for someone to get $1 million. You know?
Are you joking?
I don't like that.
Yeah.
That is all I want. If you're voting me off, I want a say in who's winning.
Yeah.
And I want to say who's
Same.
not winning it. Oh my God, Matthew, we think very differently. That is
Listen,
not.
Phil.
Oh my God, I don't want to
Focus on the win. Focus on the win. I want
You voted me out. I am making sure that you don't get $1 million. I'm making sure that you do get $1 million because you stuck by me. I would love to be on the jury.
You know what's funny is I would rather the person who did vote me out get it so that it wasn't all for nothing.
But you know what's awesome, Matt? You know what's awesome? You get to vote. So that's the whole thing. You get to choose. It doesn't matter what you want. You get to choose. That's my whole thing.
You know what I would actually really want? I want to be at that final tribal council.
Well, yeah, obviously.
So that I don't have to vote someone else to get $1 million.
Yeah.
You gotta be on the jury to do that, Matt. You gotta be on the jury,
exactly.
my friend. What are you talking about?
No, you have to make the merge. You don't have to be on the jury to do that. You have to just make the merge.
Well, technically in this new era, you make the merge and then you make the jury. However,
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure the first person of merge, the first person to get voted off after merge has not been making the jury lately. Like Dwight.
Yeah. Dwight.
And Dwight wasn't mergatory.
Sifu.
Dwight was merge.
So
Dwight was merge.
Yeah, mergatory. You recall mergatory was Ellie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, still, you don't make the jury if you make it to final tribal council. You make the jury portion of the show, but that's a distinction. I like this. I want to continue this conversation, but we must keep going. Mo.
Yeah, this was just kind of Mo giving her. Again, this is what I love about Mo. She will just make it lighthearted. And I think, again, it's the moral of the story. Don't say you love Aubrey, apparently. Just if apparently the next time you're on Survivor, guys, if they say who's your favorite Survivor contestant, Janelle from Big Brother, that's what you've got to say at this point. Do you get what I mean? Like, at this point, you'll say someone and they'll be like, that's who you are. And also her exit interview that she did with Dalton Ross, she commented on it. But I'm gonna miss Mo's tweets about her time in the season, because I feel like, especially these last 2 episodes, we saw some good tweets from Mo, which I really like.
You know what? Sometimes it is fun to see there, especially if they're not, if they didn't make the jury portion. It's fun. I like seeing some of the reactions. Like I still like, I love following Jess, you know, and seeing her responses to the episodes too. So I think we're gonna see more of Mo.
This was a couple of Yanu's, but it was people poking fun at what they had said, because obviously Kenzie she made the thing of, because she'd been to tribal so much, she was an iron skillet and everyone else was not. And kind of Tiffany's, like I mentioned, like Tiffany was very happy to go away from Yanu. So it was just some lighthearted tweets that I found that I was like, they're poking fun, like they're making light of the season and bringing the joy again, and kind of remembering the funny little nuance moments, which I appreciated. And just remember, stay seasoned. This was kind of Maria and Soda. Soda made a big point about kind of talking during this particular challenge because again, as we know, she's had a lot of negative people in her comments, and I feel like this was a really lovely moment for her. And again with Maria, and it just showed like the teamwork of that thing of no matter what's going to happen, they're here for each other. So yeah, I kind of wanted to find. I saw a couple of tweets, so I was like, I feel like I have to include these.
Were there any portions in particular about this that are good to highlight? Because it's a long text, but I do like the fact.
Admittedly, can't read it, but
I can't even read it.
No, it was kind of she was talking about how people had underestimated her, how people just automatically kind of think, oh, she's going to struggle with this, and proving to not just herself but everyone that she was able to conquer it mainly.
Yeah, I like it. It was like, this is my experience, you know, and this is the show. Like that's all. I think it's important to keep that in mind. Venus. Yep. Ollie, go ahead.
So for anyone that is not on X, Venus popped off on X, and it was so juicy to see. They're like, these are just 2 of like 10 tweets that occurred. And it was kind of just, it was her giving her perspective, because everyone else, it was kind of like almost everyone else had a chance to kind of give their opinions on her. And she was kind of almost reclaiming some of that. And kind of the first tweet that I didn't say vote Charlie because of Women Strong. I said, if we're really voting Mo because she was a super fan. And I think this is a very good point. What's stopping anyone else from being voted out next? Because that's the thing, and the little bit of you're not ready for that convo. And again, I've been saying this plenty of times. Everyone keeps calling her a challenge liability. She's been killing it in the challenges. So I'm glad she gave herself props. There was another tweet I haven't actually put up on here, and it was why she was giving her reasons of why actually Charlie voted for her. And it was the fact that kind of Venus, again, mentioned the whole, if someone does a shot in the dark and whatnot, it's a good thing. And obviously Charlie took it and went, okay, I'll use that against you.
We see Charlie's reasoning, and Charlie's reasoning makes sense. Venus put his name out there, so you gotta do it, right? Like that I don't blame. I think it's important to make that distinction and to call it out that no, Venus, in fact, was not opposing a gendered alliance. That wasn't in her storyline. That wasn't in the edit. She's saying that's not even something that was happening on the island, but it was others who made that assumption on or connected the dots to that in their mind. So I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. This was the main one. It goes from the previous tweet as well. Because again, it is that thing of I think Venus is a very black and white player in the sense of she's not afraid to let people know where she stands. And I think she kind of called out the dynamics of this episode quite well, in my opinion. Because it was very much easier for the Brachachos to maintain control in this situation. So I stand Venus for mentioning it, but that's just because I'm in my female empowerment era. And we have Charlie giving his reasons. I remember I think it was you, Phil, that mentioned it earlier on in the stream. And I was sat there remembering I had put this tweet on there, and I was like, here we go. Here's the reasons. But yeah, I think to Charlie's credit, pretty fair.
And finally, go ahead, Ollie.
So this I really promise I love Q as a person, but Q is being cheeky. So we have this other place. It's all Winner Survivor. They will ask for player of the episode, just like Survivor Now does. And Q actually put at the bottom, he commented, "Do not allow Twitter to fool you." And then it was another person had shown Venus's like whole stream of tweets. And again, Q commented going, "Oh, what season is this? I have to watch it." So I think it was Q throwing a couple of like cheeky jabs, I hope, in good spirit. But yeah, watch out for Q. Q is very fun on social media. I will say that, because he doesn't mind poking the bear at times with people. So I appreciate about that with him.
Well, those were some of the highlights from this week's episode. There's also one additional one from Venus, but it's it's rough out there. It's fun to sort of be a part of the conversation online, but there's also a lot of hate and a lot.
Yes.
It can be pretty brutal. So again, I like ending this section with just a reminder that there's no reason to be mean to people. Online, in person. There's no reason. So again, I always encourage, go tell your favorite player that you love them and leave other players that you don't get along with, leave them alone. So
or you could just be a fan. You don't need to be. You don't even need to tell that you love them. You don't. You can just be a fan. I just always want to say that too. I consider myself. I'm a huge Survivor fan. This is the first time I'm seeing all this stuff every single week. I do not go on social media. I don't care about their social media per se. This is a fun segment to check out. But yes, guys, you don't need to harass people. That is insane. I'm just gonna put it frank. It's insane. Don't do it. It's weird.
And just also throw it out there again. Our viewers, you've all been so incredible. I love seeing you all in our chats, having these discussions with each of you. It really means a lot that you take your time out of your day to come spend it with the three of us and chat about the episodes. That's what we love. We love having these conversations. And again, we'll just spread Phil's message and what we all just said here as well to our other Survivor fans, our fellow Survivor fans who are out there. And go from there. So with that, thank you all again for joining us for episode 6 of Survivor 46. Next week, it's episode several, and we can't wait to talk about it. So have a great week, everyone, and we will see you next time.
Don't message players. Comment.